All right, when we left off, we were talking about free speech and protections on free speech things that are not protected. So we have a couple here, libel and slander. So they're very similar. So basically when you're making false claims about somebody to try to make them look bad. Libel is if it's written, so it's usually in a newspaper, maybe a website. Slander is a spoken statement. So it's like, I don't know, you accuse somebody being like a child molester or something with no actual evidence, so they get fired. Anyway, the Supreme Court dealt with this in 1964 in the case New York Times versus Sullivan. Sullivan was the governor of one of the southern states. I want to say maybe Mississippi. And the New York Times keep reporting about civil rights movement and saying essentially Southern government's racist. Sullivan says this is libelous behavior and it needs to stop. And the court said that if you are a public figure, a politician, a celebrity of some sort, that you are held to a higher standard, which means it's harder for you to accuse somebody of libel. So basically, it means you can say whatever you want about politicians and celebrities and so on. All right, there's our think, pair, share. That's one of the options for you. All right, the last free speech one is obscenity. Obscenity really is talking about pornography. Um, for a while there's difficulty defining obscenity. So for a long time, porno was banned. If you watch like an old movie, you'll see they treat pornography like it's like drugs or something. This happens all the way up until the case Miller versus California, 1973, where they essentially say that nudity can be considered a form of art and thus cannot be banned. All right, assembly. So here's one. This is a good example of how civil liberties and individuals' protections can be very controversial. So free assembly means you can meet as part of a group if you want to. It's tied to First Amendment's free speech, and it basically is to stop the government from cracking down on anti-government groups. Anyway, the most famous example is from Skokie, Illinois. This is a suburb of Chicago, late 70s. And the National Socialist Party, the Nazis, were holding a rally. Skokie is a very highly Jewish population. So, needless to say, the citizens of Skokie not happy about this. Um, but the claim of the National Socialist Party was that they have a right to assemble and to do a parade, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the court said, you know, we don't have to agree with your politics, but everybody gets treated equally under the Constitution. If you look at the link here, this takes you to this incident being famously depicted in popular culture. That is, of course, from the Blues Brothers. All right, that's where we're going to leave off on First Amendment.